Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. Well, this week we're going to discuss some of the bills in education that have passed out of the House and gone to the Senate, are about to pass out of the Senate and go back to the House. And these have to do with funding formulas when it comes to taking public dollars and giving them to unregulated private schools. So this session, 2023 legislative session, several bills on education have passed out of the House. Now, we saw a lot of the culture war bills already. This has to do specifically with funding of education. Now, I say education instead of like public education or anything else because a lot of the funding formula has to do with giving our public tax dollars to private schools, mostly Christian private schools. Well, they're all going to be Christian private schools. I'll almost guarantee it. Anyway, that's what this is about. $630 million in public education money that they're going to have to increase education. Now, some of the stuff that passed out of the House that went to the Senate, especially on two bills, one was giving a tax credit for those parents that choose to go to private schools with their kids. Well, the tax credit was going to be $5,000. Now they're making the tax credit $7,500. They did that in the Senate. And how they're going to do this is they're going to take the homeschool credit, which was $2,500, and now make it $1,000. So they're taking $1,500 away from homeschool parents. Public education school parents are getting zero. Christian private school parents are going to get $7,500 a year. Now, that still doesn't pay for the full cost of education in a private school. Private school tuition is around $9,000-$10,000. So the parents will still have to come up with another $1,500 to $2,500 in tuition cost. That still doesn't include books. That still doesn't include activity fees. That still doesn't include extracurriculars like art and football. It doesn't include transportation. And it doesn't include food or anything else. It doesn't include that. It doesn't include extra items that you might need for like a lab in a science class. It doesn't include that either. So the parents are still going to have to come up with quite a bit of money, several $1,000s throughout a school year, if they want their kids to go to private schools. Several $1,000s. And that's way over what you would do if you're going to send them to public education. So you're going to take this $7,500 credit and it's still not going to pay for the school of your kid. And that's just one kid. If you have two, it becomes exponential, depending on how many kids you have. So here you go. They raised the tax credit in the Senate for private education, lowered the tax credit on homeschooling, and you still get zero if you send your kids to public education. That's the deal. Now, Chuck McCall over at the House has decided that, hey, if you change any of this, we're not going to bring it up and it's going to die. Well, that's what he's planned to do with this. He goes, hey, you've changed it. You took out the homeschool deal, now you're doing this private school deal, and I'm going to kill it. And he has incentive to, even though he's a Republican, but you see, he represents a rural area of Oklahoma near Atoka. And out there's not a whole lot of choice for private ed. There just really isn't, unless you want to go tens of miles away to get it. And that's just not doable for people in rural areas. If you're in eastern Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, or even far west Oklahoma, this isn't a viable option for you unless you plan to send your kids 60, 70 miles away to go to school. Unless you're going to send them to some boarding type school, which would be very expensive, and $7,500 isn't even going to come close to covering the expense. So that's what we have, the brilliant idea from conservatives in our legislature. This has been an idea they've had forever, and it's an ideal. That's what it is. It's some type of utopian education system where we turn it all private. It's all privatized to these private schools who aren't accountable, by the way. There is not a law, any of these education laws that have been coming out, and there's been dozens of them this year. None of them pertain to to private education. None of them pertain to private education. None of them do. Private education, I guess you can show Ruby Ridges to second graders because it's private ed. Who's going to complain? They're not be held to anything. Not the government, not anyone. So who's going to hold them? Their own CEO, maybe, I guess. But they can get away with that. They can get away with doing it. Public education can't. And that's what it's about, you see. It's about Christian education. Teaching all our kids their dogma and their education system that they want. You see, that's what it's about. It's about killing the public school system. You see it with Ryan Walters all the time. That's why he says, hey, I don't want to see our kids going to our public universities because all the wokeness. Don't send your kids to our public universities, which scares away companies like VW who are saying, hey, we need skilled workers, and your head of education is saying, don't get skills. It's a socialist plot. Skills lead to workers and worker economy, and that's socialism. Because that really is socialism, a worker economy. But, which is funny that they tell you all to get a job, and they're saying, nobody wants to work anymore. And you're like, well, in a capitalist society, if I invest my capital and then live off the returns, I'm not working. That's capitalism. But anyway, back to schools and these bills that are coming out of the Senate. And it's causing a kind of a circus among Republicans, because we already know the Democrats are against these. The Democrats are already against them. Kerry Hicks has come out and said, hey, this absolutely takes public money and gives it to private education. And it's designed to do that. That's what it's designed to do. It doesn't help public ed at all. There is some teacher pay raises in there, depending on your tenure, depending on how long you've been an educator and your experience. They're going to do pay raises, public school pay raises for that, for whatever that matter is. And that's pretty much what the $630 million is going to, teacher pay raises. It's not going for curriculum, it's not going for any classroom design or any kind of updating or technology or anything like that. It's teacher pay raises because we're still going to be paying them less than anyone else after this. So, yeah, $500 million of that's going to go to that, and $100 million is going to go to the school choice scandal, the school choice fraud, because I guarantee you, this $100 million, we're not going to know what's going to happen with it. We're not going to know what any of it goes. There's no accountability in any of these bills for it at all. There's no way to go after people if they do spend the money wrong. Even if they do spend it wrong, there's nothing in these bills, there's no teeth in it to go after wrongdoers if any bit of this $100 million is not spent right. There's no way to go after them. But that's, again, by design. This is what conservatives do. It's by design, so they can fleece this money. That's a lot of money. $100 million. And I guarantee you, we're not going to know where 2/3 of that go. We're not going to know. It's going to go in someone's pocket somewhere. DeMarco is going to get in there again somehow, and he's going to fleece it, like the $31 million that's missing out of the education budget from a couple of years ago. Don't know where that is either. No one seems to care. So, but with this, there is some hope with the Speaker of the House who said, hey, we sent these to the Senate and told them if any of these funding formulas change, we're not going to bring it up in the House again to approve it to go back to the governor. But we'll see what happens, because Thursday they're going to vote on this, and they're going to see what happens to get it out of the Senate. And we're going to see if Charles McCall has the nads enough to stick by what he said and say, we're not going to bring up anything if you change them. And they changed these drastically, taking $1,500 away from a tax credit from homeschoolers, where they only get $1,000 now. That's pretty drastic. And increasing the tax credit for private education, $2,500. That's a third right there, going up. So they're going to increase it $2,500 and lower the other one $1,500. And it's still not going to cover the full cost of going to private schools. It's not. And even at that, we don't have the seats. Think about this. Crossings High School. Christians Crossings High School. which is a private Christian education school, high school, has the largest enrollment of any private school in Oklahoma. So I got my trusty calculator. Let's see. They have an enrollment of about 1,500. And we have about 83 schools that are private in Oklahoma. That's 120, let's say 125,000 students that can be enrolled in private schools. And now this is if all these 83 schools have the capacity of Crossings High School, which is the highest capacity private school in Oklahoma. It is the highest capacity. So let's say these other 83, these other 82 schools get their stuff together, and next thing you know, they're able to hold as much as Crossings. Okay, they're maxed out with what Crossings has. And we have 700,000 school-aged kids in Oklahoma. That's only 17, barely 18%. 18%, that's all you can get. 18% of the kids in Oklahoma will be able to go to private schools if all the schools in Oklahoma that are private can carry the capacity of Crossings High School, which is the max capacity school for private education. There's no school that can have more students than it. They don't have no school has a bigger enrollment. So they only have enough seats for 18%. They don't really even have enough for 18%, do they? Because that's if they all could carry the capacity of Crossings. And they don't. So you know it's way less than 17%. It's more like 12. 12% of school-age kids can go to private schools in Oklahoma because that's all the seats they have. And it'll take years for them to build enough Christian, private, white education schools for them to reach any kind of capacity that's going to matter for the most of the population of Oklahoma. So 18%, that means even with the enrollment of Crossings, that's 82% of the kids in Oklahoma would still have to go to public schools. There would be no choice for them. There wouldn't be a seat otherwise. They'd have no seat anywhere else. 82% of kids will have to go to public ed. They will have to. And this is what they're hobbling. This is what they're trying to get rid of. They see it as socialism and a socialist plot to have public education. That's why they're going after it so bad. That's why teachers don't want to teach. We got to retain our teachers. Well, you keep beating them up. You keep passing laws that say you're going to put them in jail for 10 years and fine them $100,000 when they barely make $30,000 a year. That's insane. Nobody's going to want to come here to teach if those kind of laws are in place. We've lost so many teachers and staff due to just Ryan Walters being elected to the position he's in and the rhetoric he says. We've lost so many teachers, and the morale is so low because of it. It's kind of like when I saw Greg Treat come out about the VW thing. Well, we really need to figure out why companies don't want to come here. Are we just not offering them enough money? That's what he said. Maybe we're not offering them enough money. No, that's not the problem. We're offering them plenty of money. The problem is, it's the politics. It's the clown show from conservative Republicans. That's what it is. When Ryan Walters says, don't go to universities in Oklahoma, companies won't want to come here. They need skilled workers. That's not a way to get them. Anyway, this is Across the Desk, and we will see you next week.